The first thing the soldier noticed was that the battlefield was quiet in the wrong way. The kind of quiet that usually came right before something exploded or someone said something incredibly stupid over the comms. He stood there with his rifle hanging low, power cell warm against his palm, wondering which of those two options fate preferred today. The sky above the outpost shimmered with orbital traffic, distant ships sliding across the clouds like thoughts that refused to settle. He told himself he was calm. He told himself that a lot. Nothing on sensors, someone said in his ear, which means something is definitely on sensors. He snorted despite himself. Humor was cheaper than therapy and easier to carry than fear. He scanned the perimeter again, boots sinking slightly into the alien soil that had the texture of wet ash and smelled faintly like burned citrus. Whoever terraformed this planet had a strange sense of smell, or a cruel one, probably both. That was when he saw her. She wasn't advancing with weapons drawn. She wasn't hiding behind cover or glowing ominously like most hostile life forms tended to do. She was just there, standing beyond the defensive line as if the war had misplaced her. For a moment his brain tried to file her under civilian, then decoy, then finally settled on problem. She looked human enough to trigger old instincts. Same general shape, same posture, same unsettling ability to look like she knew exactly what she was doing even when standing completely still. Then his eyes adjusted and he noticed the ears. Long, elegant, tapering back along the line of her head, not sharp in a threatening way, just deliberate. As if evolution had taken its time and decided to add a signature flourish. Well, he muttered, that's new. His training told him to raise his weapon. His instincts told him to make a joke. His instincts usually won. He thumbed the comm. Command, I think the planet grew a person. Static crackled. Someone swore softly. Describe the person. She's not on fire, not screaming, and not shooting at us, he said. So I'd say she's either friendly or extremely confident. The alien woman tilted her head slightly, as if she could hear him through vacuum and bad decisions. Her gaze lifted, and when her eyes met his, something inside him missed a step. It wasn't dramatic. There was no flash of light, no psychic scream, no sudden urge to betray humanity. It was worse than that, it was subtle. Like realizing a song you'd been humming your whole life had been slightly out of tune. He blinked. Once. Twice. The battlefield didn't return to normal. Okay, he whispered, mostly to himself. That's unfair. Her eyes weren't glowing. They weren't alien in any obvious way. They were just very present, too present. As if they were paying attention to parts of him he had carefully ignored for years. He felt seen in a way armor was never designed to handle. He shifted his weight, suddenly aware of how tired he was. Not physically. Emotionally. The kind of tired that came from too many deployments, too many planets with too many names that blurred together, too many friends who were now statistics. He tightened his grip on the rifle, then loosened it again when he realized his hand was shaking. Soldier, command snapped in his ear. Do not engage. Wasn't planning on it, he said. I think she's engaging me. That doesn't make sense. Neither does this war, but here we are. The alien woman took a step closer, not fast, not slow, just enough to make every alarm in his body argue with every part of him that wanted to stay exactly where he was. He swallowed and tried humor again, like pressing a bruised muscle to see if it still hurt. You know, he called out, voice carrying across the open ground. If this is a surrender, you're doing it very dramatically. She smiled, not wide, not nervous, amused. I am not here to surrender, she said, her voice smooth and oddly familiar, as if it had learned his language by listening to him complain. I am here because you are. He frowned. That's unsettlingly personal. That is often how it begins, she replied. Great, he thought, philosophical aliens, the worst kind. His squad murmured over the comms, theories flying faster than drones. Mind control, espionage, experimental weapon disguised as a person. He hoped it was the last one. At least weapons followed rules. What's your name? he asked before anyone could stop him, including himself. She considered this, eyes never leaving his. Names do not translate well, she said, but you may call me what you wish. That's a dangerous offer, he said. I once named a tank Princess, and it never forgave me. Her smile deepened, and he felt it like a pressure behind his ribs. He laughed despite himself, the sound sharp in the quiet. It felt good. That was the problem. Okay, he said, taking a slow breath. I'm going to assume you're not here to kill me, because if you were, you've had plenty of time. That is correct, she said. And I'm also going to assume, he continued, that you're doing something to my brain. She tilted her head again. I am doing nothing, she said gently. Your brain is doing this to itself. He grimaced. That sounds like every bad decision I've ever made. The tension around them thickened, invisible and heavy but threaded with something lighter, something almost absurd. A soldier standing on an alien world, joking with a woman whose eyes felt more dangerous than artillery. He wondered vaguely if this was how legends started, or cautionary tales. Look, he said, lowering his weapon fully now. I don't know what you are or why you're here, but if this is some kind of psychological warfare, I'd like to file a complaint. There was no warning. She stepped closer again, close enough now that he could see the fine details of her face, the subtle differences that made her unmistakably not human. Close enough that he could smell the air shift around her, like static before a storm. This is not war, she said softly. This is recognition. Something in his chest gave way just a little, not enough to break him, enough to scare him. He forced a grin. You say that like it's supposed to make me feel better. It will, she said, eventually. He had survived plasma fire, orbital bombardments, and 3 different military cafeterias. None of that prepared him for the simple, terrifying truth settling into his bones. Whatever this was, it wasn't going to kill him quickly. It was going to take its time. And for the first time in years, the soldier realized that scared him more than death ever had. The soldier decided, several hours too late, that agreeing to escort an alien woman who might be dismantling his emotional stability from the inside was not covered in his training manual. If it was probably hidden between what to do if your commander is an AI having an existential crisis, and standard procedure for tentacled negotiators, both of which he had skipped because he assumed they were jokes. She walked beside him as if she had always belonged there, matching his pace without effort. The base corridors adjusted automatically to their presence, lights brightening, doors sliding open with the soft sigh of obedient machines. Every step felt louder than it should have been, his boots echoing like accusations. He could feel her eyes on him even when she wasn't looking directly at him, which he told himself was impossible, then immediately stopped thinking about because his brain was already working overtime. So, he said, because silence was dangerous. You just stroll into a human military outpost during an active ceasefire collapse and expect everyone to be normal about it. Normal is a flexible concept, she replied. He barked a laugh. You should meet our command staff. They bend that concept into shapes that shouldn't exist in this dimension. They passed a pair of engineers who stared openly. One of them mouthed something that looked like "Are her ears real?" and the soldier very deliberately did not acknowledge it. You don't seem surprised, he said after a moment. By your curiosity, she asked. By us, he corrected. This situation, me not panicking, you not being shot. She considered this. You are panicking, she said. You are simply disguising it with humor. Wow, he said. You're good. Do you do parties? Her lips curved again, and there it was, that subtle shift inside him, like gravity leaning closer. He shook his head slightly, as if he could dislodge the feeling. They reached a briefing room that had been hastily repurposed into a neutral space. Holographic displays flickered with half-compiled data, star maps overlapping with tactical projections. Someone had tried to make it welcoming by adding chairs instead of restraints. Progress. He gestured to one. Please sit. Or don't. I don't know your customs. For all I know, sitting is an insult. It is not, she said, and sat gracefully. He sat across from her, immediately aware of the distance between them, immediately aware that it felt wrong. Too far. He resisted the urge to lean forward. A thin hum filled the room as the translation field stabilized. He rolled his shoulders, feeling the familiar itch of armor that had been worn too long. "Okay," he said. "Let's do this the official way." "You are." "Here," she said simply. He blinked. "Right, of course you are." "You are asking why," she added. "I am," he admitted. "And how, and whether I should be worried that my brain feels like it's being gently reorganized." "That will pass," she said. "That's not comforting." "It is true." He snorted. "You're really leaning into that." For a moment they just looked at each other. The silence stretched, but it didn't suffocate. It pressed, yes, but like a question rather than a threat. He became aware of small things: the steady rhythm of his breathing, the faint vibration of the station, the way his pulse seemed to sync with the ambient hum. "My people," she said finally, "do not experience separation the way yours do." He raised an eyebrow. "You're going to have to explain that in small words, preferably with a diagram." She tilted her head. "We are attuned to each other. To intention, to emotion." "Ah," he said, "you're an empath." She frowned slightly. "That is an incomplete word." "Story of my life," he muttered. He leaned back, folding his arms. "So you feel things, big deal, lots of species do. Doesn't usually result in whatever is happening to me." "It does when the resonance is strong," she said. "Resonance," he repeated. "That sounds very science-why. I like it already." He tapped the table, trying to ground himself. "So what? I'm vibrating at the wrong frequency." "Or the correct one," she said. He laughed, sharp and defensive. "Of course I am." A calm light blinked on the wall. He ignored it. Whatever crisis command wanted to discuss could wait. This felt bigger, or maybe just closer. "You are trained to suppress," she continued. "Fear, desire, grief." "Desire," he said. "That's a new one. They usually just tell us to suppress everything." Her eyes softened. He hated how much that affected him. "When you look at me," she said, "you do not see me. You see what you have denied." He stared at her, then looked away, suddenly very interested in a flickering hollow map. "Well," he said lightly, "that explains the sudden urge to rethink my life choices." She did not laugh. She watched him with something like concern. "That is not my intention," she said. "Good," he said, "because I'm terrible at life choices. I'd hate to drag you into that." Another silence. This one felt heavier. "You are damaged," she said quietly. He winced. "Wow, no warm-up at all." She leaned forward slightly. The air seemed to lean with her. "So are we all," she added. He exhaled slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay, I can work with that." He met her gaze again, bracing himself. The feeling surged. Not pain, not pleasure, something deeper. A sense of being exposed but not judged. "Here's the thing," he said. "I don't know what you're expecting from me. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a philosopher. I'm a guy who knows which end of a rifle points at the problem." "You are also a man who jokes when he is afraid," she said. "Who stands when he could rest. Who looks at the sky as if it owes him answers." He swallowed. "You really need to stop doing that." "Doing what?" "Seeing me," he said. Her expression softened further, and for a terrifying moment he realized she might stop if he asked. That scared him even more. "I cannot," she said, "and neither can you." The calm light blinked again, insistently. He sighed and stood. "Congratulations," he said. "You've officially become my problem." "I am honored," she replied. He snorted. "Don't be. I have a terrible track record." As they left the room together, alarms began to sound faintly in the distance. Another skirmish, another escalation. The universe, impatient as ever. He glanced at her, then away, then back again. "You know," he said, "I once survived a month on a moon where the gravity randomly reversed." "That sounds unpleasant," she said. "It was," he agreed. "But this—" He gestured vaguely between them. "This feels worse." She smiled, gentle and unyielding. "That," she said, "is because this matters." And the soldier, who had faced the end of worlds without blinking, found himself laughing softly, helplessly, because for the first time he believed her. The soldier discovered that once your emotional defenses had been breached by an alien woman with inconveniently honest eyes, everything else became much harder to ignore. Sirens wailed through the outpost, not the sharp scream of immediate annihilation, but the lower, irritated tone that meant command had decided the universe was misbehaving again. He walked through it all with her beside him, feeling strangely calm, as if his panic had already exhausted itself earlier and left behind a tired clarity. "Good news," he said, glancing at a tactical display scrolling across a wall. "We're on the brink of a multi-species incident that could ignite a regional war." She looked at him. "You sound relieved." "I am," he said. "At least it's familiar." Outside the outpost, ships maneuvered into defensive positions. Human cruisers angled their hulls like clenched teeth, while alien vessels hovered at impossible orientations, geometry that made his eyes itch. Automated announcements echoed, repeating evacuation protocols no one ever followed. Through it all she remained composed, long ears still gaze steady. "This escalation was anticipated," she said. "Of course it was," he replied. "Let me guess. You're about to tell me this is why you're here." "Yes," he sighed. "I was hoping for something more romantic, or at least less explosive." They reached the command nexus, where officers argued with holograms and holograms argued back. An AI flickered uncertainly between probability trees, its voice fraying at the edges. The soldier raised a hand. "Permission to say something wildly inappropriate?" he asked. Command stared at him. Then the AI said, "At this point, permission is meaningless." He gestured to the alien woman. "She's not a weapon, she's not a spy, she's an emotional amplifier with opinions." Several people blinked. "That's not better," someone muttered. She stepped forward. The room quieted without anyone quite deciding to be quiet. "My people do not conquer," she said. "We intervene when resonance threatens collapse." The AI recalibrated. "Define resonance." She looked at the soldier. He nodded, a small, strange gesture of trust. "Resonance," she said, "is what happens when fear feeds on itself, when civilizations suppress their grief until it demands expression as violence." The soldier crossed his arms. "In our defense, we're very good at suppressing things." "I know," she said softly. A human commander scoffed. "And you expect us to believe this feeling thing can stop a war?" "No," the soldier said before she could answer. "But I believe pretending feelings don't exist started most of them." Silence followed, heavy, uncomfortable. The AI spoke again, quieter now. "There is statistical support for that assertion." The soldier smiled faintly. "See. Even the machine agrees." Plans shifted. Weapons powered down by degrees. Not because of orders, but because no one was quite as angry as they had been an hour ago. It wasn't peace. It was something more fragile, something honest. Later, much later, the soldier stood on an observation deck with her. The stars stretched endlessly, indifferent and beautiful. "So," he said, "did I pass the test?" "There was no test," she replied. "Good," he said. "I'm terrible at those." He leaned on the railing, armor finally removed, feeling lighter without it. "You know, I used to think strength meant not feeling anything. Turns out that just makes you hollow." She watched him with that same unbearable attention, but it no longer felt like an attack. "You are still strong," she said. "I know," he said. "That's the scary part." A transport waited in the distance, ready to take her back to her people. The universe always demanded motion. "Will you remember me?" he asked, joking to keep the ache manageable. She smiled. "I will resonate with you." He laughed softly. "Figures. I finally get closure and it's metaphysical." They stood there until it was time. When she left, it wasn't with sorrow, but with completion. The soldier watched the stars and felt, for the first time, that he didn't need armor to face them. He turned away, ready for whatever came next, changed in ways no weapon could ever achieve.